Don't you just love the Olympics? There's just so much drama and all kinds of stuff that happens and stories from all these different sports. But I want to touch on Canada Soccer's Spygate because though it's kind of in the rearview mirror for a lot of people at the moment, this story is not over. In my opinion, it's just picking up steam. If you just kind of missed this story or just really haven't gotten into the facts, I'll give them to you here and some of the reporting that's come along with the investigation because it's getting pretty deep. Welcome to Campfire Football. I'm Sebastian North. Let's talk about Canada's Spygate. Before I get started, I just think it's so funny that whenever Canada get caught in the middle of a controversy, a lot of people say, I never would have expected the Canadians would cheat. That just seems so unlike them. And then all of a sudden, the world is against them. Anyway, on the eve of the women's football tournament, it was reported that New Zealand had seen a drone flying over their training session on 2 separate occasions. And that after the second time, a guy was arrested, linked to Canada Soccer, and put in jail. And that is when the information started to spill out all over the place. So the Canadians put out a statement saying that an unaccredited analyst flew a drone over the training sessions and has since been sent home. And this was along with an assistant coach who was working with him. Now you have to remember, Canada were going to play against New Zealand in the opening match. So Bev Priestman, the Canadian coach, put out a statement saying that she was recusing herself from the match, that she would not attend, she would be out of fairness for the whole situation, and that she was apologizing about the situation and saying on her watch these kinds of things shouldn't happen, blah, 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 nice political statement, okay. Now there were some people who heard this and said, oh, that's nice of her, that seems fair. But it also gave you the feeling of her protecting her own ass and allowing someone else to go down for her.
When Priestman originally came out and took herself out of the game, and it seemed like, I'm not sure if it was her intention or not, was throwing the other coach or coaches under the bus. And in Canadian football, despite everything that's going on, people stand up for their own. And I don't think that that's sat right. And I think that that's why you found so many people within Canadian soccer willing to speak on this issue.
The unaccredited analyst thing is interesting because saying that makes the person sound not as important, like they're some renegade that just went off and did this on their own. But it also covers them because there's only so many people you can give accreditation to for the Olympics. Now, I thought they did this more as a way to slander the guy and just try and keep themselves in the clear. Either way, FIFA got involved, and that's when the sanctions started to come down because more information was coming out, and it seemed very likely that Bev Priestman had not only known about these practices, but probably encouraged them over time as well.
First of all, for the women's soccer team, a deduction of 6 points from Group A. They've been fined 200,000 Swiss francs, but perhaps the biggest suspension sanction of the lot is for Beverly Priestman, the manager of the side. Her officials, Joseph Lombardi and Jasmine Manda, each have been suspended from taking part in any football-related activity for a period of 1 year.
Yes, these are pretty tough sanctions. This kinda might spell the end of Bev Priestman's career. She's out for a year. Canada's gonna need a new coach, so I doubt they'll keep her on the books. And this is pretty serious reputational damage for her, so I don't know how she's gonna come back from this one. As for the players who were docked 6 points, after their victory, they were now at -3. They had no choice but to win the next 2 matches to have a chance to go through to the next round, and they did it. This whole thing created a siege mentality for the players because from their perspective, it was like, yo, you let us down. Like, we didn't know anything about this, and now look, our dream of making it far in the tournament has been made almost impossible. And they really dug in. I mean, they beat France 2-1 in the 12th minute of stoppage time, and then they went on to beat Colombia 1-0 to get out of the group stage and set up a showdown with Germany, which they lost on penalties after a 0-0 draw. Canada's showing at this tournament was pretty good. They only conceded 2 goals and didn't actually lose a game aside from on penalties. So it was really impressive from them. They were furious about it. They were annoyed about being called cheaters, and they were just like, we're caught in the middle of this. This is just totally ridiculous. So who does this really fall on? Where does this all begin? Rick Westhead of TSN has done some immaculate reporting on this. He's got tons of sources, and the more information he gets, it's quite clear this has been happening with Canada on both the men's and women's side for years now.
Well, I've talked with sources with firsthand information and knowledge of this. I believe, based on what these sources are telling me, that we can go back as far as 2019 to a men's game in Florida against the U.S. team, and a drone was used by the Canadian men's team staff to spy on the U.S. practice. Fast forward 2 years, it's 2021. We're kind of in the middle of COVID still, and the Olympics are in Tokyo. And a source tells me that a Canadian coach finds a way to get to a Japanese training session, not once, but twice, to 2 training sessions, and secretly record that practice. In 2022, when the women's team was trying to qualify for the World Cup in Australia in 2023, there was a game against Panama, and Panama staff actually saw someone kind of suspicious lurking around the outside of the perimeter where they were doing their training, I'm told by a source. That led to a subsequent complaint to Canada Soccer and to CONCACAF.
Right, so there is a clear track record of them doing this. And it's not just that spying was clearly being done by some people, but that it was heavily encouraged and possibly even almost mandated from the top. Now the question is, how high? Is it the managers? Is it above them? It seemed people were being expressly hired to do this job. So is it their fault for doing it? Or was there something else that was making them fearful of saying no?
Another important fact I think that we could talk about is why hasn't this story come out before? And the sources I talked to spoke about a lot of fear, a fear of reprisals from Canada Soccer. One of the sources told me that, the way this was put to these contractors and lower level coaches was, you need to buy in, you need to be part of the team, you need to give 110%. And if you want a place on this team, this is what it takes. This is what we will do to gain a competitive advantage.
Well, this would suggest there is no way the coaches did not know about this. There was a text message that Bev Priestman had said that all the big teams do it, so it's really not a big deal. And that was part of the reason why she was banned for a year. John Herdman, who was coach of the women's national team until 2018, and then Bev Priestman took over, and then he took over the men's team for the Qatar World Cup. He was asked about this as well.
I just wonder what may be next now for John Herdman. Here's what he said about any allegations of cheating under his watch.
I've always gone into Olympic Games, World Cups, big events with integrity in mind and the ability to compete at the highest level following the rules and processes. So, from my side, as I say, I'll help Canada Soccer where I can with that review, but I'm highly confident that in my time as a head coach at an Olympic Games or World Cup, we've never been involved in any of those activities.
It's funny how he only mentions that we didn't do it at World Cups or at Olympics, but it sounds like they were absolutely doing this for friendlies or qualification games. But John Herdman is swerving this. He's not accepting any responsibility or saying he had any knowledge of it whatsoever. And that's a real problem because of this.
Our latest story talks about how on August 31st, 2021, a couple days before Canada played Honduras in a World Cup qualifying match, 17 players on the men's national team were showed a video of the previous day's private training with the Honduran team. Interesting, coming after what John Herdman's comments were earlier today.
Yeah, hopefully we find out something from the guys who were in that room, because that's a pretty big smoking gun right there. The crazy thing is the staff members that were doing this consistently, they had absolutely no problems coming to the Olympics and trying to do it again.
One of the reasons that more information is coming out that we're being told is that the Canadian staff requested to bring their drones to France and were denied by the Canadian Olympic Committee. And they brought them anyways and did something illegal, which led the paper trail for them to be caught red-handed. Then to go and say that you didn't have any knowledge of what was happening, it's a downright lie, which Bev Priestman is being caught right in the middle of.
All right, that's insane. I mean, the fact that the Olympic Committee tells you you aren't allowed to bring those and you do it anyway. Look, important fact to know here, it is illegal to fly drones in Paris during the Olympics. This is a French law right now that is in place, and these people are flying drones over a training session. Like, obviously, this was not going to go well. In this case, our culprits are Joseph Lombardi, who has been working for Canada Soccer for a while. He was listed as some kind of performance analyst, and Jasmine Mander, who was listed as an assistant coach. Mander started working with the national team, I think, just before 2020. Basically, these two had probably been on spying missions before. That's the highest likelihood here. But were they really so stupid to just say, like, screw the Olympic Committee, I've heard you're not allowed to fly drones in Paris, but we're going to do it anyway. We get away with it every single time. It's not going to be an issue. And even if we get caught, no one's going to care. Or were they just like, look, we need to find a way to do this because, or else we might be seen as redundant, we might not be seen as doing a good job, and that could be a problem for us professionally. Either way, they went ahead with the plan. Lombardi flew the drone. Paris police saw it, arrested him, put him in jail for 3 days, and gave him an 8-month suspended prison sentence. And that's where all the news really started to come out. So what now? Well, Canada Soccer is kind of in the dumps, and the last few years for Canada have been wretched. They've had massive financial issues. They haven't been able to give the players or the teams proper training camps, even though they made it to the Qatar World Cup on the men's side for the first time in forever. And the women won gold in Tokyo in 2021. So on the field, it's been good. Off the field, it has been a complete mess. They've cleaned house a little bit. There's a change of leadership. This guy, Kevin Blue's the CEO now, and he has been known as someone who can really balance the books and get the budgets right. But he also is going to have to do something about this culture, because apparently everyone just thinks the only way you're going to keep a job here is by spying on opponents. Now, a lot of people say, look, everyone does it. The Patriots did it. Bielsa did it. Yet they got caught and they got reprimanded for it, and they had to own up to their mistakes. That just happened to Bev Priestman. It's probably going to happen to John Herdman. And I'd imagine there's quite a few other people who are pretty worried their phone's going to ring sometime soon. So I think in time we're going to get a lot more information about this. Overall, it's not the most insane story or scandal you ever heard, but it is pretty wild how deep it went. So that's the Canada Spygate story. Thanks for stopping by. I'm Sebastian North. Take it easy.